So we have already proved that 0 is a prime ideal of Z. Now let's P be a prime number. We have to prove Pz is a prime ideal. So let AB belongs to Pz, then AB will be of the form some P into M, right, for some integer M. That means from here we can say P divides AB. From this relation we can write in the next line that P divides AB. Now P is a prime number, that means either P divides A or P divides B. From here we can say, now if this happens, that is if P divides A, then what we can say, that A will be of the form some P into M1 which belongs to Pz, right? And if the next case happens, that is P divides B, then we can say B will be of the form P into some M2 for some integer M2. So in that case this belongs to also Pz. So in any case either A belongs to Pz or B belongs to Pz. So according to the definition, Pz is a prime ideal. Okay. So we have proved that all the prime ideals are of the form Pz, where P is either 0 or prime. Now we need to prove the converse part. That means if we choose any prime ideal, then it is of the form Pz, then it will be that the P will be a prime element or prime number. We need to prove that. So conversely let P not equal to 0 is a prime ideal of Z. Okay. Now Z is a principal ideal ring. We have already checked it. That means every ideal is a principal ideal of Z. Now we have claimed P is a prime ideal. That means capital P will also be a principal ideal. That means capital P will also be generated by a single element. Let's it is generated by the single element small p. That means we can write P as small pz. Okay. Now what is our work? Our work is to prove that P should be a prime number. Because we have already taken it is not equal to 0. So we have to prove that small p should be a prime number. Now if possible, let small p is not a prime number. Let it's a composite number. So in the next line we are writing let small p is a composite number. Then P equal to some U into V, where 1 less than U less than V less than P. This one, according to the definition of composite number, it can be written as like this. Now P belongs to capital P, which is small pz. That means P belongs to pz, obviously, which is equal to our capital P. So P belongs to capital P. Now P means what is? UV. So from here we can write UV belongs to capital P, and we have taken that capital P is a prime ideal. So from the definition of prime ideal, what we can write? Either U belongs to P or V belongs to P. Right? So in that case, U belongs to P. P means small pz. And V belongs to P. If V belongs to P, then V belongs to also small pz, because P is our small pz. So in that case, either U belongs to Pz or V belongs to Pz. Now if U belongs to Pz, then P will divide U, and if V belongs to Pz, then P will divide V, but which is a contradiction, because we have taken 1 less than U less than V less than P. So from here we arrive at a contradiction. So this cannot be happen. P cannot be a composite number, that is P must be a prime number. So from there we have proved that all the prime ideals of Z can be represented of the form Pz, where P is either 0 or a prime number. So from this property we get a total concept about all the prime ideals of Z. It will be of the form Pz. And what about all the ideals of Z? It will be of the form mz, where m is any integer, and for the prime ideals it should be either a prime number or a zero number or a zero. Okay, next moving to maximal ideal. So maximal ideal is, suppose R be a ring and ideal M which is not equal to R is said to be a maximal ideal, if there exists any ideal U such that M subset of U subset of R, then this will imply either U equal to M or U equal to R. Okay, so R is a ring and M not equal to R. The first condition is it should be not equal to R. It is said to be a maximal ideal if there is any ideal which is greater than M but less than R, then either M equal to U or U equal to R. That means among all possible ideals of R, M should be the largest one. That is the actual definition of maximal ideal. That means if we consider all the ideals, obviously proper ideals, not improper, because M not equal to R. If we consider all the proper ideals of R, then M should be maximum, or the M should be the largest among all of this. Then we will say that this is a maximal ideal. And mathematically we express it like this, such that if there exists any U ideal U which is greater than M, that means M subset of U subset of R, then either M equal to U, that means M is itself the largest one, or U equal to R, that means U becomes the whole ring R. Okay, this one. Then M is said to be a maximal ideal. So moving to some examples of maximal ideal. At first we are considering the set this ideal, trivial ideal 0. Obviously it is not equal to R. And then how will we prove that this is a maximal ideal? If we consider the ring as a field, then only it is a maximal ideal, because not for the ring it is possible. So if we consider a field, because field has the property, a field has the property that is, a field only has two ideals. What are those? It is the 0 and F itself. Except that 0 and F itself, a field has no ideals. So from there we can say that 0 should be the maximal ideal, because this is satisfying this property. 0 is a subset of F, and between 0 and F there is no other ideals. Then 0 becomes the maximal ideal for the field, because field has no other ideals, no other non-trivial ideals. So the singleton set 0, this forms a maximal ideal for a field F, not for a ring. Okay. Next, let us consider another example. Let us consider the ring as Z, our very common example Z, and we are considering the ideal 2Z. Let's check this 2Z forms a maximal ideal or not. We have already proved that 2Z is a prime ideal, right? Now let's check 2Z is a maximal ideal or not. So for that reason, let us consider any ideal. Let U be any ideal such that 2Z subset of U subset of R. So what we have to prove? We have to prove either 2Z equal to U or U equal to R. Then our result will be done. Now Z is a principal ideal ring. We have already checked that. Now what does it mean by principal ideal ring? That means every ideal should be a principal ideal. Now we have taken U is any ideal. That means U is also a principal ideal. That means U can be generated by a single element. Let us suppose U is generated by the single integer M. That means U can be written as mz, right? Now here that means 2z subset of mz subset of z. Now 2 belongs to 2z, which is a subset of mz. That means 2 belongs to mz. So from there we can write that m divides 2. So whenever m divides 2, that means what are the possibilities for m? M can be 1 and M can be 2. No other possibilities left. So the possible values of M is either M equal to 1 or M equal to 2. Now if M equal to 1, then U is generated by 1. That means 1Z, which is equal to Z. And if M equal to 2, then U is generated by 2, which is equal to 2Z. So in any case, either U equal to 2Z or U equal to Z. So 2Z is our required maximal ideal. So from here we can say 2Z is the maximal ideal of Z. Okay, that means from here we can conclude 2Z is a prime ideal and a maximal ideal of Z. Now let's check the next example, which is 4Z. Let the ring as Z, taking as Z, and 4Z as the ideal. Let's check this becomes a maximal ideal or not. The answer is no, because it's very easy. Z is a subset of 2Z, and which is a subset of 4Z. The reverse thing, that is 4Z, it is a subset of 2Z, it is a subset of Z, right? No, so from here 4Z cannot be a maximal ideal, because we get one proper ideal which is larger than 4Z and lesser than Z. So from here we can say 4Z is not a maximal ideal. That means 4Z is neither a prime ideal nor a maximal ideal. From here we can conclude that. Next, moving to another example. Let us consider the Z cross Z, the ring Z cross Z, and S equals this A, 0 such that A belongs to Z. This is a prime ideal, this is an ideal. Obviously it will also be a prime ideal, but we don't need that now. We are discussing about maximal ideal. So S is an ideal of Z cross Z. We want to check that S is a maximal ideal or not. So for that reason, if we find some ideal which is greater than S but lesser than Z cross Z, any proper ideal, then we can say that S is not a maximal ideal. For that reason, considering the set T, which is equals A, to B, such that A, B belongs to Z, then obviously S is a proper subset of T, right? And T is also a proper subset of Z cross Z, which is again form an ideal of the set Z cross Z. So we get one proper ideal which is greater than S but lesser than Z cross Z. So this S is not a maximal ideal. Okay. So from here one question suppose can arise, that prove that this set S is a prime ideal but not a maximal ideal. I have proved this, that this is not a maximal ideal. Your work is to prove that this is a prime ideal. This is very easy. Just take any capital AB belongs to S, then you need to prove either A belongs to S or B belongs to S. Very easy proof. This will be your homework, okay? Prove that this is a prime ideal. S is a prime ideal but not a maximal ideal. So from here the question can comes like, prove that S is a prime ideal but not a maximal ideal. Okay. Next, moving to the next example of maximal ideal. Example 5. It is saying that let us consider R as all the real valued continuous function on 0, 1. So let R is all the real valued continuous function on 0, 1. This is our required ring, and we are considering the set S such that F belongs to R such that F of half equal to 0. That means we are considering all that constant functions under which F of half equal to 0. All that functions under which the half takes the value 0. Then obviously S is a subset of R, and it is also an ideal. We have already proved that in ideal chapter that S forms an ideal. Now we need to check S is a maximal ideal or not. We just have to prove that. So for that reason, we are considering S subset of U subset of R. If possible, let there exist some proper ideal U such that S subset of U subset of R. That means whenever S is a proper subset of U, that means there exists some element, at least some element, such that if you consider the diagram, this is our R, this is U, and this is S. That means there exist few elements which belongs to U but they does not belongs to S. That means suppose there exists some G such that G belongs to U and G does not belongs to S, right? So whenever G does not belongs to S, that means G of half cannot be equal to 0 because this is the property of being an element of S. So G of half is not equal to 0. So let's say G of half equal to some alpha which is not equal to 0. Okay. Then we are considering a new function hx. Hx equals gx minus alpha. Let us consider. Then h is obviously a continuous function because gx is a continuous function and alpha is a constant. So hx obviously a continuous function. That is, it belongs to that C, our ring, required ring C01 or R, whatever we are saying it. Hx belongs to R. And what about h of half? H of half will be g half minus alpha. G half is alpha, so alpha minus alpha equal to 0. That means h belongs to our set S because h of half equal to 0. And S is a subset of U. That means obviously h belongs to U. Now U is an ideal and G belongs to U, comma H belongs to U. From there we can say G minus H belongs to U. Now what is G minus H? If you check this relation, Hx equals Gx minus alpha, then G minus H is alpha. That means alpha belongs to U, right? Now U is an ideal and U belongs to alpha, U is an ideal and alpha belongs to U, and alpha inverse also belongs to R, right? Then multiplying them, as U is an ideal, so we can say alpha inverse dot alpha, this is also belongs to U. That means 1 belongs to U. 1 is our unity. That means the unity element belongs to the ideal. So what we can claim from there, whenever an unity element belongs to the ideal, then the ideal becomes the whole ring R. So U equals R. That means from there we have taken that S subset of U subset of R, we have proved U equals to R. So S is our required maximal ideal. Okay. This example is also very important. Like, prove that this is a maximal ideal. Even the proof of this is an ideal, this was also very important example in the ideal chapter. Next, moving to some theory using quotient ring. There was two very important and very useful theory about quotient ring and ideals. The first one is, suppose we are taking R, a commutative ring with unity. Commutative ring with unity. Then any ideal P will be a prime ideal of R if and only if R by P is an integral domain. And the second theorem is P will be a maximal ideal if and only if R by P is a field. These two theorems are very useful to solve problems. Most of the problems will be solved by using this theorem. So we need to prove where R is a commutative ring with unity, then P will be a prime ideal if and only if R by P is integral domain, and P will be a maximal ideal if and only if R by P is a field. I will prove the first one, second one will be homework. Okay. So let's prove the first one, and the proofs are also very easy. So let's take the first part, this is the necessary part. Let P is a prime ideal. Okay, we need to prove R by P is an integral domain. So the basic property of integral domain is that it doesn't contain any divisor of 0. So for that reason we need to prove that R by P doesn't contain any divisor of 0. So for that reason let's take two element equal to 0 in R by P. What are the elements look like of R by P? It is of the form A plus P, B plus P, like this. So let A plus P into B plus P equal to 0 in R by P. We need to prove that this doesn't contain any divisor of 0. That means either this is equal to 0 or this is equal to 0. We just need to prove that. So let this equal to 0. That means multiplying them it will become AB plus P equal to 0. That means AB belongs to P, which is a prime ideal. We have already taken it, P is a prime ideal. So from here we can write either A belongs to P or B belongs to P. Now whenever A belongs to P, that means A plus P equal to 0, or if B belongs to P, that means B plus P equals to 0. That means in any case either this one 0 or this one 0. That is, from here we can say R by P has no divisor of 0. So R by P is an integral domain. That is, the necessary part of the theorem is proved. Now we need to prove the converse part, that is, if R by P is an integral domain, then P must be a prime ideal. So for that reason, conversely let R by P is an integral domain, and let AB belongs to P. We want to show P is a prime ideal. That means we have to prove either A belongs to P or B belongs to P. So let's start AB belongs to P. So from here what we can write, AB plus P equals 0 plus P, right? Now instead of this we can write A plus P into B plus P equals 0 plus P. Now P 0 plus P means the 0 element of R by P. Now what is about R by P is an integral domain, and we get the product of two element becomes 0. So that means it is an integral domain, so it doesn't contain any divisor of 0. That means either this is 0 or this is 0. If this quantity is 0, that means if A plus P equals 0 plus P or B plus P equals 0 plus P. Now A plus P equals 0 plus P, that means A belongs to P, and from this we can say that B belongs to P. So either A belongs to P or B belongs to P. We started with this AB belongs to P and we get this one. So from there we can conclude P is a prime ideal. Okay. So the condition is proved. That is, whenever P is a prime ideal, that means R by P must be an integral domain. And the next theorem, which is your homework, states that if P is a maximal ideal, then R by P should be a field. Okay. Next, moving to another very important property or theorem, whatever you say. It states that in a commutative ring with unity, every maximal ideal is a prime ideal. In a commutative ring with unity, every maximal ideal is a prime ideal. We need to prove that. There is nothing to prove because we can just prove it in one line by using the previous two theorems. So let us consider, let M be any maximal ideal, okay, of the commutative ring with unity R. So from the previous theorem, what we can say, this will imply R by M is a field, right? But just by applying the previous second theorem. Now whenever R by M is a field, now a field is always an integral domain, because integral domain is a subset of a field. So that means R by M is also an integral domain. Now whenever R by M is an integral domain, that means M is a prime ideal, just by using the first property of previous theorem. So we started with M is a maximal ideal, we get that M is a prime ideal. This is the required proof. Okay. Now we need to check some corollary. That means the converse of the theorem is not true. That is, maximal ideal is always prime ideal, but prime ideal may not be always maximal ideal. So we have to prove it by taking some counter example. Let us consider that 4z 2z, this example. Let us consider the ring 2z and the ideal 4z. We have already proved that 4z is not a prime ideal. Not a prime ideal. Because what's the reason? Because 2 into 2, 4 equals 2 into 2 belongs to 4z, but 2 does not belongs to 4z. So it is not a prime ideal. Just one minute. No, we cannot show that by using this example, because this is not a prime ideal. So we want to prove that a prime ideal may not be a maximal ideal. So this example won't work here, because this is not already a prime ideal. So let's take another example. If we consider the trivial example, that is the zero ideal, that is the trivial ideal. So consider the trivial ideal of the ring, suppose Z. Now we have already proved that that 0 is a prime ideal of Z, right? Because whenever we take any element, AB belongs to this set 0, either A belongs to 0 or B belongs to 0. So 0 is a prime ideal, but 0 is not a maximal ideal of Z, because Z is not a field. This is only possible for a field. Z is a ring. So we already can find many proper ideals like 2Z, subset of Z. So 0 is not a maximal ideal. So from the example we can say the converse of the above theorem is not true. That is, whenever we get any maximal ideal, it will be a prime ideal, but the converse is not true. Prime ideals may not be always maximal ideal. Okay, this. And the second corollary of the theorem is that the condition, that is the commutative ring with unity, this cannot be skipped, because if we consider a ring without the unity, then the theorem may not be hold. So the unity, this phrase cannot be removed. For that reason we can consider this 2z and 4z, this example. We have already proved that it is not a prime ideal, but it will be a maximal ideal. That means maximal ideal is not implying a prime ideal, because we didn't consider any ring with unity, because 2z is a ring without the unity element. So from here we can say that for the theorem this unity part cannot be removed. So these are basically the theory part of this maximal and prime ideal. We have few more theories using principal ideal domain. There is a certain relation between principal ideal domain and the prime ideal and maximal ideal, but you don't know what a PID is or what a principal ideal domain is. So we will prove that theorems in the principal ideal domain chapter. Now based on this theory part, we are just going to solve few examples. So at first, the first example is find the maximal ideals and the prime ideals of Z6. Find all the maximal and prime ideals of Z6. These examples are very important, like Zn type of Z6, Z8, Z10, like this. Find all the maximal and prime ideals of Z6. How will you do that? Now we have already checked that Zn is a principal ideal ring, right? Zn is a principal ideal ring. That means each of the not element, that is each of the ideals would be a principal ideal. That means whenever we get any ideal, it can be generated by singleton element. So if we consider any ideal of Zn, it will be a principal ideal. That means it is generated by singleton element. So we are considering the sets generating by each of the single element of Z6. So what are the elements of Z6? These are class 0, class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4, class 5. So considering one by one and start to find the set generated by these elements. So at first class 0, generated by class 0. It will be obviously the singleton set 0. Then generated by class 1. 1 into class 1. Then it will be class 1. 2 into class 1. Class 2. 3 into class 1. Class 3. Similarly class 4. Class 5. And also 0 into class 1, which will be class 0. Then again 6 into class 1, that means class 6. Class 6 means class 0. Then 7 into class 1, that is class 7. Class 7 means class 1, and so on. This is start to repeat. So this is it. This is our class 1, which is equal to Z6. Next, generated by class 2. Class 2. So it will be at first class 0. 0 into class 2, class 0. Then 1 into class 2, that is class 2. 2 into class 2, that is class 4. Then 3 into class 2, that is class 6. Class 6 means class 0. Then 4 into class 2, that is class 8. Class 8 means class 2. So it starts to repeat. So we can stop here. This one. 0, class 2, class 4. Next, generated by class 3. It will be class 0. Then 1 into class 3, that is class 3. Then 2 into class 3, that means class 6, which is equal to class 0. 3 into class 3, that is class 9. Class 9 means class 3. So this one. Class 3 is this. Then next one is class 4, generated by class 4. It will be at first class 0, then 1 into class 4, class 4. Then 2 into class 4. That means class 8. Class 8 means class 2. Then 3 into class 4. That is 3 into 4, class 12. Class 12 means class 0. So we can stop it here. That means class 0, class 4, class 2. So check, this is actually the ideal generated by class 2. So these two are same. And the last one is generated by class 5. It will be class 0, then class 5, then class 10. Class 10 means class 4. Then class 15. Class 15 means class 3. Then class 20. Class 20 means class 2. Then class 25. It means class 1.